Hello everyone, it's Mike Levitt. Saturday, August 20th at 4:50 p.m. On my way heading to the Catskills. Listening to an audiobook of, let's see what it's called, Quantum, a guide for the perplexed. That is on my iPhone that I use as my podcast listener and Audible player, so that I'm not draining the phone, draining my main phone's battery. So if I forget to charge it, there will still be some energy at the end of the day, which there totally wouldn't be if I used my main phone for all my audio listening. And I have been bitten. I caught the bug. I caught the Audible bug. I remember, I guess it was before I moved to New York, I remember walking around on my, well, I don't even know what device I had of the day. It was probably the Sony Ericsson P910A, which was an awesome little device, one of the kooky precursors to the iPhone that already had achieved pretty awesome smartphone cred and status. Were it not for the iPhone, this thing could have been it. And it was on a strange little OS called UIQ, the UIQ flavor of, now let's see if I can get it right. I believe it's called Symbian, or it might be Symbian. Symbian, I think. I always get those two things confused. Anyway, I was talking to the Audible founder, or at least one of the people involved in the earliest days. Must have been around 2003, 2004, before they were part of Amazon, giving them all sorts of advice, really thinking through for myself what kind of device I would be switching to digital listening on. And I had such enthusiasm in those early days, over 10 years ago, and then just totally had the enthusiasm knocked out of me by audiobook prices. I really couldn't spend at the rate I would want to listen. So once again, I was put into that position of pirating the audiobooks or living without them. So I lived without them, and I went the Amazon Kindle route because the book versions are cheaper, and for the $1 you get a lot of time pleasure out of them. You know, you read a book for longer than you listen to a book, typically, because, you know, often you reread pages, or, you know, you set aside time for it to enjoy it. Some people skim, but I'm a real reader. So the rate at which these narrators go usually gets me through a good, 12 or 15-hour book at faster than the pace that I would reading it, because of that absorption thing that I do. But now I've decided to give the Audible.com subscription service, which is about $15 a month, a try. And for that, you effectively get unlimited listening. They don't pitch it this way, but they do tell you that any book that you're listening to, you can return for a full credit refund for that month's, token or credit, and apply it towards a different book. So I was listening to Thinking Fast and Slow, and I got through the anchoring chapter, and started hitting my head against the wall. I know why I'm not in statistical math, or one of the behavioral sciences. After you realize, people are basically animals and can be easily manipulated and controlled. Surprise, surprise. And here are the few hack tricks, the few life hack tricks. It's like yawn. I guess I first got a notion of that from the true classics. I guess insofar as, we still have the written classics. There might have been classics further back, who knows, but Sun Tzu, The Art of War, states these things in various ways, as does Machiavelli's The Prince. And in more modern times, one of my favorites is Robert Cialdini's Influence and the art of persuasion and his various principles of how you can get people to do stuff, as he made a study of the high pressure effective sales techniques, telemarketers and such, how they worked on people. And he found a number of various principles, and I've zeroed in on a few favorites. One of them is the principle of commitment and consistency. And it states that if you do something that puts yourself on the record for a certain belief, and you do it in a way that you know you're going to be held accountable in the future, like signing a public petition, you are more likely in the future to exhibit behavior that is consistent with your stated belief. Therefore, I vlog. So if any of you wonder whether I'm doing these videos for myself, for idea capture and thought processing, and having sort of documented thought anchors throughout my life that I can look back to and sort of see what was going on in my mind, perchance to build on certain ideas, to evolve ideas to the next step from video to video, or whether I'm doing it to drive up the views and make some YouTube advertising chump change, beer money. I don't know, maybe. Certainly, I am conducting experiments, and I'm in the field of search engine optimization, and it's constantly evolving, and we're at sort of this vibrating edge of these two separate worlds. And they say, oh, machine learning is changing everything, the rise of rank brain, PageRank is dead, content is still important, but links less so. Well, I don't think so. Links are a form of machine learning. You give it a larger and larger sample set, and an algorithm gets a continually refined image of what concepts or what pages, what nodes in the network are important on what topics. Now, certain things are changing, like the discriminatory nature of the examination of this same data. You can actually look at the data through a different type of lens. You can establish patterns that you can look for in the data, certain word usages, words used in combination according to certain patterns, etc., etc. And then you can build indexes against these nodes to do fast lookups. In other words, query a larger network through an optimized smaller image of that network that is comprised of tiny extracts that can give you a little sample. So the internet itself is undergoing a very interesting evolution. I'm hesitant to call it a revolution, but some technologies you should be aware of include IPFS, the Interplanetary File System. All right. This is a system by which the very content that you've published creates its own URL, because the URL to find that content on a network is the output of a hash function applied against the published content. So you have a place where you can store something. Traditionally now, there's only one place that thing is stored, and when it's put there, a URL points the way. If that one server were to go down, poof, that content is gone. Now, picture another version of the internet where, yes, there may indeed be one original point of publication, but there's caches all throughout the internet. When things are requested, stuff is stored local. And the local store is a combination of that URL, in other words, the hash of the media, and the media itself. So at any point in the cache, you can plug in the URL and get out the media, so the content gets, by its very nature, distributed across the entire network. Building into the network is sort of distributed media backup safety. As many times as people requested, and there are pathways between routers, are as many times as this data is locally cached. So yes, the interplanetary file system requires really big hard drives at the big repeating nodes that can work as a cache. But the upside is the nature of these hashing algorithms can be really clever. For example, if it's a single image, a single picture, and you have to create a hash of it, why not use an actually perceptually recognizable, in other words, it looks like a picture to you, perceptual hashtag. So you take an image, you do some level of thunking it down resolution-wise. There's a whole bunch of dimensions you can do that on. Sampled resolution to make it pixelized, color resolution to make it black and white, and you can even do histograms and transform it to not be a actual grid mapping, so as to be more efficient, so that each intensity of color you only need to store once in a dictionary. So histograms are once again like name value pair dictionaries, where the name is the color and the value is the intensity, the number of times you found a pixel portraying that color in the image. You can do the same with brightness, and so the hash does not need to be visually recognizable in order to contain a higher degree of information for your byte buck. But if you're willing to give up a little bit of that compression efficiency, and you're willing to use an X by Y grid sampling and say thunk it down to black and white, and to use a resolution that's like, I don't know what your pixel resolution might be, but say like recognizable. In the olden days of computers, you could make a perfectly recognizable image in 320 by 200. And you could probably do it in shades of gray, though color helps. The Amiga computer did a respectable job of photorealistic images in 4096 colors, 320 by 200. Believe it or not. And that was with additional resolution loss by virtue of a compression technique called ham mode, hold and modify, where the color of each pixel could be modified from the color of the pixel it was adjacent from, and therefore you could take a resolution, 320 by 200, that could normally only display 32 colors, that could be pumped up to 64 colors, I believe, or I might have that wrong. It might have been 256 colors, pumped up to the 498, whatever that is. But the Amiga had very low resolution and could make some highly perceptually recognizable images. So if you take just the right X by Y, low resolution, black and white, you could make something where the complete small black and white thumbnails worth of data could be in the 140 characters of a tweet. It might have to be compressed further to be in the tweet, but some Twitter client could take that 140 character tweet and show you a little black and white thumbnail, so you can actually tweet in the proper, not the metadata, but in the body of the message, the 140 character space, a black and white thumbnail image, which is a URL legitimately, because IPFS, Interplanetary File System, can use different hashing algorithms for their URLs. You can apply different algorithms so long as they result in unique values and change when your media changes. Consequently, thumbnail images, tiny black and white thumbnail images that can be tweeted, can be network addresses on a distributed system due to a caching system that caches using the URLs as the keys in local name value stores. It can store as much of the internet at each repeater node as memory storage that you want to throw into it. The less you throw into it, the less it can be stored. And you have to set up all the rules, because when people stream large things found at one URL, or maybe a constantly changing URL based on some streaming URL updating system, well, suddenly there's now a lot of URLs in existence, and you're sort of flooding it. And if it's first in, first out, you can sort of clear your whole local internet purge by just washing it out with some data streaming, which would probably be an undesirable effect. So there'd be various rules so that you keep a good sampling of the whole internet at each repeater or router node, or whatever terminology arises around these things. And so now the picture gets more interesting, because you can also define the location of data relative to other media. So once you give the location of a picture, you've created a namespace which is contained within that picture. So that picture has other pictures inside of it. Or that picture / another picture would be legitimate. You could show them lined up in a chain, a lot like URLs in an address bar, the path components in an address bar. Something is at http:// some domain, some path, some file name. That's a very typical convention as created by the Apache standard, where locations on files, on file systems, a file on a hard drive is mapped one-to-one to a URL. The internet is not inherently that way. The HTTP protocol standard states that. That's where the unique, the U in URL comes from. They figure, hey, if their file's on a file system, each one is unique. Okay, bam. You've got a strong mental model for how to organize data on the internet. It's very hierarchical. You get the whole concept of paths for free, this/that. There's sort of indexes, there's sort of folders, there's sort of directories. So you could just say to Apache, let directory browsing work, and you can navigate all this and find the file you want without actually having to create HTML files to knit it all together. Apache's default behavior could knit it all together. In those days, security was much less an issue. And there were even advocates of making the internet so open, really, that there were no passwords, that everyone could see everybody else's files. And while that's unthinkable today, that was one of the main thought avenues of the day before Unix 1. Oh, Unix 1, what a whole other video. I finally got Bash, Ubuntu, or for those of you who prefer it, Ubuntu, Bash, Shell, under Windows 10 anniversary, update, installed, and have started using it. I've started doing my daily journaling in Vim under Ubuntu Bash, under Windows 10, technically under VMware Fusion app, under OS X operating system, under Yosemite or whatever the heck it's up to, El Capitan, I guess, operating system, under a 2011 Mac, which is under Intel hardware, using, I believe, an SSD storage system, with 120 gigabytes of hard drive storage. So I'm keeping very aware of the amount of hard drive space all this is using, and these are big upgrades. This Windows upgrade was not minor, let me tell you, and it was big all over again after first applying the anniversary update and then doing the App Store, the Windows Store install of the Bash. It doesn't come part of the anniversary update. It only gives you the ability to request it from the store, which is a whole nother install. But by the time it's done, you're now sitting on an officially compatible Ubuntu binary running machine. confirmed. I'm running Vim Nox, that's Vim-Nox, apt-get installed from out of the Ubuntu Debian-like repository, and I'm using it for my daily journaling now at the office. Amazing. So that leads me into API levels. Now let's see if I bring this all around here. Stepping out. Audible.com. I've been following for a very long time, but avoiding the book addiction, audio book file addiction, and I have been denying myself. Oh my God. Now that I'm actually taking one book after another out, I'm churning through these things like Thinking Fast and Slow. Oh, all the podcasts I listen to say, gotta hear it. They mention the flow, although I'm not sure it's the main book where the zone or the flow concept is mostly touted. I think I've got another book in my future that encourages people to get into that creative thinking mode where everything just comes spontaneously and expertly because you've committed so many complex rules to an automatic system that resides in all our brains, that is the System 1 type that handles everything that is pattern automatable, no matter how complex the rules. This is where people think that simple pattern recognition and pattern recognizers and linking it all up through Lisp and a positronic brain and great energy source is going to give us the Isaac Asimov future, and we'll be uploading our consciousness to sentient robots and the mind meld combination of machines and humans that Ray Kurzweil, predicts will be in the next 30 years, comes from the making of a mind. And then there's the skeptics who say, come on, guys, you're being very optimistic. What you're failing to calculate is not everyone is at the same level of advancement, either in what data they're willing to look at, what conclusions they're willing to listen to and accept into and integrate into their day-to-day lives, the rate at which government legal restrictions and limitations will allow things to advance. Indeed, the very rate at which our internal moral restraints will allow things to advance will always and inherently inhibit and stifle the advancement of trying out iterations on possibilities that we know to be possible. Science does not advance at how quickly science can advance, because we like gridlock. As soon as there's democracy or something resembling a free choice, free access, free exchange in a free market system where no one can actually kill their opponents or their co-occupants in that space with some unfair advantage, a powerful hierarchical ruling structure, for example, and the internet makes everyone anonymous and idea exchange uninhibitable, suddenly every idea is shared. Every idea then becomes possible, more likely to happen, and the space that we're living in, the complexity and the richness and the inherent danger multiplied tremendously. Infinitely? Not until the experiments are carried out and the reality, possibility collapses. The variety of reality resolutions collapse. And so now I'm listening to that book about, trying to explain quantum mechanics to the layperson. It always gets back to the two slits. I think the Young slits, they're calling it. That was a milestone event. And the work of Maxwell Planck in black body emissions, quantized emissions of black bodies, was a critical moment, although apparently nobody realized it at the time until Einstein put it together and said, hey, look at what this means. And over and over, I hear people like Richard Stallman saying, just forget it. It doesn't make sense in our real world. There are no metaphors and analogies. And matter or energy, that the two-slit experiments works with buckyballs as well as it works with photons. That's the amazing thing. So what we believe is atoms, and very large ones at that, C60 or C70, the smallest soccer ball we can build, portrays properties that are equally in common with a beam of light, in that they radiate out into a probability cloud and only collapse into a particle-like unit at the moment they're measured. Otherwise, they travel through the intervening slits in such a way that even one at a time creates an interference pattern. One atom shot at a time, one buckyball shot at a time, sent through two slits, travels through both, because the way they hit on the other side interferes with itself, even if it's just one. And the universe really does work that way. This is not something that's being debated over. And I should probably wind this up now. I'm going to wind this up in under half-hour increments so they don't have to edit things together in that clumsy way I did the last time I did one of these wacky videos on my drives to the Catskills. I will throw out a pitch to myself. Anyone who listens to me on YouTube this far should start to check out my typed out long form presence on the internet too, because I'm going to be doing some very interesting machine learning. Bringing it back to machine learning. PageRank is machine learning, and so is the RankBrain stuff that's replacing it. So we in the field of SEO must always be conducting experiments where we blend together premises, probing outside the black boxes, such as it were, probing outside the dark emitters to see where, even if signals are missing in the visible light spectrum, see what it's given off in the other areas of the electromagnetic spectrum. Relevancy, signal, leakage. Also quantized effects, I would bet, in that breaking a certain threshold in Facebook or Twitter probably makes things show up on certain web radar topics, like Tech Radar is an old school one I know, but I'm sure there are just dozens like that are monitoring the Twitter stream and monitoring the public Facebook popular nodes, letting those things out pop to the normal links space, like through Taboola and other things like that, to make them show up on the link graph. So positive feedback loops, and I'll stop it there. It's all tied together, isn't it? I would love to bring it down to earth quite a bit more to sort of make it all make sense. Advice to Addie, I don't know, advice to myself. Listen back to my videos over time and group them and republish and carry out some of those Python Flask projects you want to do in order to map certain URL requests to name value pair blob responses while you decide what you want to do with all this traffic. Histogram the traffic, make it counters over time, create those stacked trending lines that are so insightful that you always wanted, and pull off some SEO kung fu awesomeness that maximizes your audience. Check out mikelev.in, MIKELEV.in, for my latest thoughts, who I am professionally, my advice to my daughter, and check out MikeLevinSEO.com for my daily thoughts. That is MikeLevinSEO.com, or just Google SEO consultants and go about 60 pages in. I'll be there somewhere. Thanks for joining me. Hope to talk to you soon. Don't forget to thumbs up this video, forward it to someone else who you think might need to see it, and subscribe. Hope to see you soon.